So we have a couple of your messages. Mama V will stretch the arms very well.
Yeah.
And I try to read a couple of them. You want to read some messages?
Yes, I do. There's good news. Lots of good news today. This one says, thanks for your good work towards education, but there are still a lot of such schools in my district. That's from Da Costa from Nkranza North. And this has to do, you know, in the AM News, we brought a series of educational stories had to do with infrastructure, the lack of it, schools terribly, in terrible locations. There's one that still sits on my mind, and I'll ask Patrick Gomez to perhaps play that again if he's ready with that for us, and then we'll continue. I'll tell you why this is really on my mind. We need to, if government is not ready, if they don't have enough funds to do this, there has to be a way that we can push this agenda and get these classroom blocks, fixed. So Gomez, bring the story back again.
Established over 30 years ago, the Edutwi Primary School has never seen any facelift, even though notable people from the community are products of the school. The current state of the school building has become a major source of worry to pupils and their teachers. Very deep cracks have developed on various parts of the classroom block, exposing teachers and pupils to danger. Joy News gathered that the school's activities always comes to a standstill anytime it rains. Some Class 3 pupils, Kelvin Obinasari and Abigail Amankwa, said they are constantly agitated because they are unsure when the classroom block will collapse on them. Pupils are therefore calling on the government as a matter of urgency to construct a new classroom block for the school in order to avert any disaster as well as enhance effective teaching and learning. Our school building has collapsed and we want government to construct a new one for us.
Anytime it rains, we feel very cold and classes have to come to a halt. We are pleading for a new school building.
Caretaker.
And we all know that very school needs a lot of attention. And many of you have been sending us messages indicating which schools in your communities that also need a lot more attention.
Yeah. Wow. So Da Costa was just saying, because he comes from this this district, not this necessarily exactly, and he says there are a lot more schools in there like that. But I started by saying that there's good news, because Da Costa said God has blessed me with a bouncing baby boy yesterday. Greetings to all friends.
Da Costa.
Da Costa from Techiman. Congratulations to you. Yeah. But let's all see how we can help. And I think that for people who come from communities such as this one that we're highlighting, I mean, it shouldn't take central government to come and put up a classroom units block for a school like that when we know they need help. There are people who fortunately have really made it and they're out of the community. We can always go back there with the little that we have, mobilize funds or find a way to raise some funds and get support for the school.
We used to do a lot of self-help activities back in the day. I remember in the early years of the structural adjustment program, and when in the early part of the 80s, we used to have a lot of self-help community programming, because that was the consciousness of the time. But now we seem to also, even though it's the responsibility of government, know that we also have a certain shared responsibility.
Yeah, we do.
Because when you help and put it together, these very schools, you also get to have your children educated, and education is key in every aspect of our livelihoods. Because if you're better educated, you know how to get access to better health facilities or better health care, etc. And many improvements.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. Kauri Mohammed in Bandai says it's a shame on the part of government, and that's the tone of a lot of the messages we're receiving with regards to this message. John Tatali, thank you for the message. We've got lots of messages from individuals. This one says, happy Salah to Muslims in Pusiga, and that's from Ima. We'll come to the Salah messages in a bit, but Roland, tell us what's in the Daily Graphic.
Well, so we have front page of the Daily Graphic.
Check it. Is it today's date?
Yes, today's date,
okay.
Wednesday, July 6th.
I'm surprised to see the Daily Graphic, really.
Oh, why?
And the Ghanaian Times is a holiday. You know, usually the big papers would take a break.
It depends.
Or
if
it is too midweek.
Yes, if it's
kind of
if
thing.
it's a very long holiday, that's when they do.
Yeah.
Daily Guide has on the front page, Supreme Court orders EC delete 56,739 NHIS voters and others not captured on the list. And then we also have a picture there inserted of one of the plaintiffs, Mr. Abu Ramadan and Mrs. Charlotte Osei, EC boss after the court proceedings, and all they're very interesting. And also the Supreme Court has summoned owner of Munti FM host and 2 panelists, and you have Alistair Nelson and Godwin Akugan. GCA to regulate use of drones from September. We know drones, they've now become a feature of I think the media and a lot more of the counterintelligence community in our country. I think even private companies and things use them for surveys and getting a lot more documentation, video documentation on a number of things.
So what are we saying? They're not being regulated?
Yes, now we need them. Even in the US, there's always it's now being, it's an industry that has come up, because you know the drones usually were used in warfare.
Yeah.
Okay, for doing reconnaissance surveys and for missions and also for research, etc., and using the military. But now we have domestic drones that have been made.
We've got media houses using them.
We have people who use them just for entertainment or recreational reasons, etc. So we need to have some kind of regulation, and because you never know, there could be a drone that's hovering around your house and it could be a bomb.
Yeah, or they could be very obstructive, if you like, to airplanes and stuff like that. I mean, they're in the air, so
low flying airplanes. Yeah, very, very true. Very, very true. Back page, we have palm oil now safe for consumption, FDA.
Are we still talking about palm oil?
I'm wondering.
Are they saying that all of it, no matter where it's coming from, is safe for consumption?
I guess so. I guess so. What they're saying is that they've announced that palm oil sold in markets across the country are now safe for consumption.
Yeah.
So
I grew up a bit in a place where, I mean, that's like the source of livelihood for a lot of people. Yeah. Kwai. Kede Kwai.
Yeah.
Ghana
you grew up there as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. There was plantation all over.
I've been there a couple of times to do some documentaries there, and very interesting. You look at the sort of industry they have there. I think we need to do a lot more policy formulation tilted towards growing those type of industries.
I agree.
Oil palm plantation, rubber plantations.
But sadly, the last time I went there, the roads, terrible roads. I mean, you would not want to go on those roads.
That's a sad part, isn't it?
It is.
And now we have a formal, it says that GPHA has formally taken over the PSC Tema Shipyard and Dry Dock, and that's the latest we have by way of what's really happening with the shipyard we have. Okay, great.
You're done?
I'm done. Okay,
let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Front page, remove NHIS card holders on voter list. Supreme Court orders Electoral Commission. And this conversation we're having in a couple of minutes, some great lawyers, it will be good. Do we have a law now? I mean, based on what law are they going to be deleting those names automatically?
Well, this one, the Supreme Court in itself, according to what the statutes are, is a place where whatever their pronouncements are become precedents.
But you realize that this was like a major argument?
And laws in themselves.
This was like a major argument before, because they said the Supreme Court cannot ask the EC to automatically delete. It has to be based on CI 71 or some other CI, or, you know.
It's also because based on how some of these statutory bodies are established by law, they by what the Constitution says, supposed to have their independence. So it is assumed. So once the Constitution says they are independent, and the Supreme Court tends to make regulations, or perhaps tend to make some laws or judgments which will tend to infringe on that level of independence they have as established by the Constitution, then it will seem to be as if it's an interference. Yeah. So I guess that's why the legal luminaries also decided to argue that way, and they were arguing based on facts and law as well.
Okay, well, it will be interesting later on this morning. Well, Ben Kofi dies at 84. May his soul rest in peace. This story, I think, was first well, not
About
sure,
3
but
days ago.
yeah, it was on my Joy Online, and then we read it out. Supreme Court cites Munti FM for contempt. That's the other side of this whole NHIS card issue with the Supreme Court. There's another angle to it where we all know by now some panelists on Munti FM made certain pronouncements. Now they've been hauled before the Supreme Court together with the owner of the station. Mass burial for 12 accident victims. That story on page 12. Let's touch on it and see. This one says that mass burial has been carried out for the 12 Benz bodies in yesterday's gory accident involving 2 vehicles on the Wenchi-Wa Highway. The senior medical officer of the Wenchi Methodist Hospital, Dr. Bosomtri, in consultation with the families of the dead and the police, carried out the burial. The Brno-Ahafo Regional Police Public Relations Officer ASP Christopher Teria, who disclosed this to the Ghanaian Times, said the action was arrived at due to the fact that the dead bodies were bent beyond recognition and could not be identified by their relatives. This is really, really sad. Okay, so back page. Aviation workers threaten strike and GCAA to regulate drones. That same story in the Daily Graphic newspaper. That's it for some of the headlines in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Roland, you've got the last paper.
Right, so we have, I have the last paper here. It is the Daily Guide. It has on the front page, of course, issues supposed to be dominating.
I think you're going to start
I'll do that.
with your girl because you're looking at her.
No, that should be the last. Supreme Court summons NDC boys over death threats. And then we also have Kofi Adams leads Mahama campaign. It's also news that came into the news media over the last 12 hours before the close of the news day yesterday, actually. We also have EC flawed over NHIS register. But let's go to the center spread. And these pictures have been circulating on social media. And Lydia Forson, we all know she has her own blog, and you get to read a lot of opinions from her on her blog. Brian Khan launched today, and it's 2 years since Castro. You know that
it's been 2 years already.
Yeah, that gentleman we all love got missing. It was a holiday period for the footballers same time last 2 years when he got missing. It's 2 years already.
Wow. And after
Time
7 years, when 7 years will
only
declare
time will tell.
7 years will declare him dead.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah, let's get on to myjoyonline.com. Let's check out what the headlines are here. And Supreme Court summons errant political activist. NRSC fails to meet media target as over 800 people die. Also, businessman donates police station Bangalore Sital to district command. When I saw this, I thought, wow, that's a single person building a police station in Bangalore. Paniki Mahama cannot execute propaganda policy on electricity subsidy. You can check out the member of parliament who is saying that when you visit the website. Voters register saga. We will protect Supreme Court verdicts. Plaintiffs vow. Are women better decision makers than men? Scientific research shows that men and women struggle with decision making equally. Are women better decision makers than men? Roland, what do you think? Are women better decision making? I mean, do they make? I don't know.
I think women, they make better decisions in the long run because they tend to think through a lot before they make decisions. Men were very erratic, very hasty in the decisions we make, and we take a lot of risk. And those who take a lot of risk tend to gain a lot.
Okay.
But women have a certain foresight that a lot more men don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's genetic. That's how women were created, and so you get to have that. If women tend to be a lot more astute and take a lot more risk and are very assertive, they are dangerous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would say a combination of the two because sometimes in being too careful, you miss a lot of things.
Yes.
So you need a man's, the risk that they take and everything. You need that together with the foresight that you have. So I think the two.
What this very research is saying is that
are women better decision makers than men? I think both at the same time.
It's not necessarily as to being couples, but talking about as in the sex a woman
Yeah.
and the sex a man.
I'll still take the same position. I think, you know, when they say two heads are better than one?
Yeah.
Yeah, not two female heads, but a male head and a female head.
I get your point.
Yeah.
I get your point. So next story.
Gomez. Supreme Court orders EC to delete names of 56,739 HIS card holders from register. And the final one, John Dumelo appointed operations director for Agenda for Mahama. When I saw it, I think early yesterday, I thought, okay, is this like another spoof something? But apparently it's true. Ace movie icon and a member of the National Democratic Congress, John Kofi Dumelo, has been appointed operations director for Agenda for Mahama, a pro-NDC youth group. Maybe we should get him on the show one of these days to tell us about his new role and what exactly he'll be doing, because the last time we checked, he was a tourism ambassador appointed by the Ministry of Tourism, Creative Arts. All right, so you can go on to myjoyonline.com and check out the stories on the page and read in detail. Let's go to the BBC page, and the biggest news today, perhaps in Africa, that a lot of people will be feeding on is this issue of Oscar Pistorius. South African athlete Oscar Pistorius is set to hear his sentence after being convicted on appeal of murder of his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp, and we've been told that the least number of years he could get based on the charge is some 15 years. So we'll see how that goes later on. We've got to make way now, and still coming up, we've got that very big conversation on this NHIS card holders and the voters register. That debate that's been raging is the Supreme Court verdict delivered yesterday. Does it end this whole conversation? Do we know what clear route to take? And how is the Electoral Commission going to react to all these? If you know you voted or you registered with an NHIS card, what should you be preparing for now? If your name did not appear in that almost 57,000, the list that was presented, should you still go forward and say that I registered with an NHIS card? And you probably did, but you've even forgotten that you registered with it. What should you be doing around this time? Lots of questions that we're asking, and that's why we've got two great minds on the show today to discuss this whole issue surrounding the voters register right here on the AM show. It will be a very good conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Are you ready for it?
Yes, I am ready. So we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll have Benedict Ozo here with a lot more sports. So stay on.
Maybe from back.